This is Elias Dufexes. You're watching That Thom Clancy Show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of That Thom Clancy Show. Sorry if I'm walking a little weird. It is morning. So, thank you all for joining us. You know, it's another wonderful day here in the studio. So let me just, get situated here at my desk. So, welcome. Well, it's a little early in the news day for there to be a monologue, but there's new MSI cards for the 3000 series, and, well, I yeeted that 3090 out into the ether, so I don't think that's going to be coming back anytime soon. But since it's kind of early, we're just going to go ahead and start talking about our guest. So today's guest is one of the founders of Human Interact, the studio behind the upcoming game Starship Commander Arcade, a trailer of which you can watch now.
I'm Sergeant Sarah Pearson. I've been assigned to your wing today. Our mission is to infiltrate an Epnian spy facility, download the contents of their database, and then blow it all to hell on the way out.
Who are the Epnians?
You've never actually seen one, huh? You want my advice? You shoot it before it shoots you. Commander, it's getting away! Engage the fighter! Follow me, we're going in!
Nice shot. I have a surprise for you. Get out of my system.
So, Bits and Pixels, please join me in giving our wonderful guest a warm That Thom Clancy Show welcome, Alexander Mejia. Alexander, welcome to the show. Oh no, I broke something.
Oh, no.
It's okay. I'm looking at the ceiling to fix it. That's what I do. I look to the ceiling to fix things. Is it that one? Is it this one? It's this one.
What did you do to my head?
It's okay. It's okay. It's mostly fixed. I don't know how I broke it in between when I set it up and now, but I did. And hey, there you go.
Hey, I'm back.
Your head's right back there. Now I'll stop looking up at the ceiling. So, Alexander, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, man. I found out about your game last week, and I was just like, I need this game on my show.
Well, thank you very much for noticing. So Starship Commander is a choose your own adventure narrative, and it's been in development since, like 2016 now.
Wow.
And we're just finally getting around to releasing it for everybody on Steam. We used to go around and show this off at shows, and we were always attempting to try to get this created into a really large game, and VR needs some help in the funding department, though.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that one. Yeah. Have you considered an Unreal or an Epic Mega Grant?
So, interestingly enough, we actually received one so that we could demo at PAX East.
Oh, wow.
Because when you demo, just if you show up to a booth and you put a laptop, assuming that you own this laptop, and you just put it on a table and you do nothing to your booth, it's like $5,000.
Are you kidding?
No, because that's what it costs to buy booth space at the convention center. And our game requires internet access because there's a cloud server you communicate to, and that's like another $1,700 on top, which we did not pay, believe it or not. We just bonded like 4 cellular modems together and then just used that, and that worked out okay.
Yeah, that's not a terrible solution, especially since the Boston Convention Center is one of the ones that actually has some of the best cell service of any convention center that I've ever been to.
Really?
Yeah, LA sucks. Chicago, I forget what it's called. That one sucks. Yeah, a lot of places Not very good cell signal, but probably because I'm guessing they've gotten in with the providers and they want to.
Yeah, I mean, it does work out well. You can. Y Here's the thing with cell service, it doesn't matter whose service is good if you bond between all 4 major networks. I guess there's going to be three now here soon, but at the time there were 4.
I'm not a huge fan of that merger, to be completely honest. But hey, I don't work for the SEC or the FCC, so nobody cares what I think. Clearly, the audience does, though. But the first question I usually throw at people in these interviews is, because we got plenty of time to sit down and talk Starship Commander, but what are you playing right now?
So for me, believe it or not, I'm not playing a whole lot because I'm trying to get this game marketed and launched. Beforehand, before I went into this, let me think. So when you ask me what I'm playing, you're asking me what I play in between when I'm not streaming.
Yeah.
So on Saturdays, typically what I stream are like retro games, adventure games, things that influenced me in my childhood because I like to share those things because I've been playing games since like the late 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And, you pull out like Wing Commander 4. We just pulled that out last week. And that was a ton of fun. And people are like, hey, man, like we're past 2 hours because normally I only stream for 2. And I was like, no, damn it, I'm going to play this game because I haven't been playing anything. And I love this game.
Dude, I can't say I blame you. I mean, as somebody who's also been playing games since the late 80s, there were a lot of excellent experiences that helped shape who we are as not just, creative people and people in game development, but just help shape who we are as people.
Mm-hmm.
Like something I always kind of go back to is the original Transformers cartoon. And, it's like Optimus Prime is going to forever be that standard by which I judge all heroes.
That's a tall order, dude.
It really is. But unfortunately, that's the hero that I grew up with. So that's the hero I'm going to judge every hero by.
Yeah.
I mean, at the same time, I mean, he wasn't a particularly interesting character because he was so one-dimensional. Like, Optimus Prime never has a crisis of faith. Optimus Prime's Optimus Prime. He knows exactly what to do. But, like, Bumblebee, Hot Rod, Ironhide, those are all the interesting characters because, they're the ones who have that struggle. And they're all like, oh, we got to do the thing. But we can't.
Hard.
Yeah, it's hard. Like, Optimus, how do I do this? And and then Optimus comes in. He's like, well, it's all about the greater good and the all spark. And, sometimes we have to do the inconvenient thing. And
sell some toys.
Yeah, exactly. And then at the end of the day, if our toy sales are up, we get a new season.
For me, I find it interesting that you point out like, hey, I wanted to be this character or I compare all heroes to this specific character because they really make a dent in you. And for me growing up, what was really interesting was I just wanted to be the main character. Like, to me, I saw bits and pieces in there, but I was always a little disappointed in terms of, oh, I wouldn't have done that, or why did that person do that? So when we started work on Starship Commander, I really drew from that inspiration as, okay, I wanted to be the main character in these kids. I would have these dreams where I would be, in the world and not necessarily be like Optimus Prime, but I would be me. And I was still in the same position of that and being able to call the shots. And so years would go on. There would be all these games that would come out that would kind of give you a little bit of that sense of, all right, I'm kind of in control. But there's definitely like the hand of the creator right behind you that's like, no, you're not fully in control. You just have this illusion of control. And so I always thought when virtual reality came around, oh man, this is a perfect medium for you to do that because virtual reality is all about being you and having your own animation. So when you reload a gun in a game, like you click a button and you see this animation of a reload in front of you, and it's some artist's interpretation of it. And what I find really fun about VR is anytime I do something in VR, people are like, hold the gun this way or reload it sideways or do this. And so when you do those actions, you see yourself doing those things. And that's like the most basic thing in VR. Like every VR game has that. And so we thought about, how do we take that to another level? And interjecting yourself and your voice, your literary voice and your actual voice into a story really presents a lot of interesting things. So for example, in our game Starship Commander, we don't have a dialogue wheel. In fact, we don't even use the controllers because we found that for new audiences, the controllers were not great. And when you're able to actually speak your mind and just to ask, what's that? Or who are you over there? Or, tell me about this piece of story, or just screw it, I'm just gonna go. Let's shoot some guns, guys, let's go. Having that control and agency over the story really empowers you. And when players jump out of this, they have this huge smile on their face. They're like, I didn't know this, that I could be me. Like it was crazy watching these gamers play this game and have this smile of like, man, that was the first time someone let me be me in a game.
Nice. Yeah, I'm trying to think. The first game, and real quick, Nevik Link, thank you for that follow. The first game I really remember with voice controls was Rainbow Six 3 for the Xbox. And, of course, only if you had the headset for Xbox Live, which, of course, Xbox Live back then came in a box and it was all bundled together. But that was a great way to interact with the game, but at the same time, it was a great way to not play the game. Because you could just sit there at the door and be like, hey, breach and clear. And your guys would then go and do the thing for you. And it's like, hey, it was a great way to effectively beat the game because your AI squad mates are much better than I was at the time. But, it didn't really give me that sense of agency or like I had control, but I didn't have agency.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I think that's one thing that people really get surprised about, because they hear, voice controlled game. And we, for like a year or two, basically try to avoid that term altogether because of what you described, right? There was another game that people pointed to where it's like, yeah, voice control games don't work. And you have to remember that like in 2016, 2017, not everybody had these, home assistants in their house. And so a lot of people at that time were just like, our first hump was just explaining, hey, this thing works. I don't believe you. Well, put the headset on, dude, and just start speaking. Well, I have an accent. It's not going to work. Or these voice things never pick me up. It doesn't work. And Microsoft, who helped us develop this technology, they have something called cognitive services. And oh my goodness, it just lets you just speak freeform. In fact, if you want to trip up the machine, like say really short 1 or 2 phrase like words like okay or no or computer get or whatever, like those are the things that really trip up the system, because it's not designed for you to treat it like a 90s dictation machine. It's designed for you to treat it like another human being. And that's why we put the avatar of Sophie Wright in there, who plays Sergeant Sarah Pearson. And that's why it's really important, because in the beginning of the game, you immediately speak to Pearson, and she immediately like trains you that you can speak to somebody. But instead of us like pulling up tooltips and doing all these stupid video game things that are hugely immersive breaking, instead Pearson just straight up asks you, what's the inside of the factory look like? They don't let us sergeants in here. And at the time, a lot of people just sat there and they're looking around, and then she's like, hey, come on, talk to me. What's the inside of the factory look like? And people are like, well, I can talk. And she has a line where she's like, yeah, of course you can talk. We're talking right now. What's the inside of the factory look like? And people are like, it's big. And there's lines for each one of those things. It's like, well, yeah, of course it's really big. That's where they make your ship. What else do you want to know? And then people realize, oh, this thing is listening to me. Oh, what else can I say? And then they start to explore it. And it's very interesting because, like, who are you? Where am I? Who am I? You can figure out who you are in the story. Who are the bad guys? What are we doing? This is so cool. You know, like all the things that people naturally say when they're having a conversation, they just fall right into it. And that whole scene at the beginning, we designed for like a year and a half to make sure that it covered all use cases, all different levels of experience with VR. There were just so many things that went into consideration into that first scene, and why it stuck around in the final product when it was really part of our what we call a vertical slice, or kind of like, hey, this is what we think the game will look like and what it'll sound like and play like. And it just ended up sticking around because people need help on this. Because I mean, imagine back when the mouse first came out,
Oh
or
yeah.
the thumbsticks first came out. People are like, what is this? And it's just like they need a lot of hand-holding, except for the fact that you have been speaking English for 10 plus years. And so you're actually a master at the controller of this game.
Hopefully. So I've met some people who've been speaking English for a very long time, and master is definitely not the word I would use. Oh, I need to use that laugh track button more often. No, it's interesting that you mentioned Microsoft in this, because one of the things I was going to mention is before they launched the Kinect, they had reached out across the country in these very sneaky accent studies. And of course, me being at the time I was working in quality assurance, and I knew that the Kinect was on the horizon. I went in and they paid me $50. They're like, "Where are you from?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm from Maryland." And they're like, "Maryland has an accent?" And I was like, "Not really, but you know, I'll take your $50. And so they had me read a whole bunch of things, basically just as I would say them. And then they were, you know, they gave you a few lines, and they're all like, "Hey," and then like, just say this as you would say it where you're from, trying to get like those local dialogues and stuff like that. And, that was, and then of course I left afterwards. I was like, "Hey, this is for that Project Natal thing, isn't it?" And they're all like, "We can't confirm or deny anything," while
Yeah,
nodding,
man.
And yeah, it's very interesting that you teamed up with them in particular, because they have this huge database and code base very set up for, I imagine, just about every country.
Yeah, we whenever we ran into an accent that stumped the machine, we would take those samples back to Microsoft when we were doing very early testing. And like, oh man, when we put this thing on, like, it understood people where English was like third or fourth language. It was incredible. It understood people better than I could, and that most people could. So the one thing that did trip them up, there was, I want to say, somebody from Iran who grew up in New Jersey and never dropped the Iranian accent, and picked up a New Jersey accent.
Oh my God.
And that was the person, the unique person who stumped the machine where they had low accuracy. And I just said, "Hey, look, can I just record you saying stuff in the game?" And had him play it again, and then we sent those clips back.
Dude, like, I got nothing. That's just because in my head, that is about the funniest accent imaginable.
It was unique. This man sounded very unique. I had never heard anybody sound like this person before. And that's kind of how machine learning works, though, is you get a huge data set, you have hundreds of thousands of clips of people saying things from different accents, from different origins, from different backgrounds, and the computer slices up the sounds into phonemes, which is a very small portion of speech.
Yeah.
And it does comparison. So it'll say, all right, I all know that everybody's all saying, this phrase, "Hello, I have a teapot," or something. I don't know. They'll pick a phrase. And so they know that the beginning of this hello sound, that's a phenome, right? And so they'll listen to all these different accents. and then the machine learning algorithm actually collapses them all down into refined code. Because if you were to do a search against, 100,000 voice clips, that would be very slow. So instead, what they do is they've got a condensed machine learning algorithm set that, all right, based off of the sound file that just came into me, it analyzes it against all its different phenome sounds that they've got, and then they can turn that into text.
That's crazy, because if you asked a person to do that, it would take clearly a long time.
Correct.
But that a computer is doing this in milliseconds to get you effectively a real-time or imperceptibly different from real-time response, that's just crazy.
So,
dude, we live in the future.
Milliseconds. We are in the future, man. Like, not only that, but you're saying like, oh, it has to do it in milliseconds. I think one of the issues that a lot of people have when they do speech to text is that it encapsulates the phrase after you're done saying it. Then it shoots it over to the speech to text machine, and then it does its processing, and then it kicks back text. We don't do that. In fact, we slice up and we do it on a word by word basis so that we get words back. And then the Microsoft software also does this really intelligent thing where, hey, maybe you're 3 words in and that first word doesn't make grammatical sense, and I actually know what that first word is now, and then it will modify that. And so in our debug output, you'll actually see the words change, and then different words change as you go on. And then once our secondary system determines what you're actually doing, then it says, okay, I have a really high confidence that you meant this. And then it waits for you to stop talking, because sometimes people say, hey, get me the coffee. Actually, no, I wanted a sandwich instead. John Romero, get me a sandwich. So
I've said that many times, actually. John Romero, get me a sandwich, and he's never answered.
I don't know why. I don't know why.
I always thought he had super hearing. I mean, I know he's like over in Ireland, and that's several thousand miles that way, but, come on, John.
Yes, come on. Come on.
I play Doom, I demand a sandwich.
But yeah, like, we have to take into account all these things, because at the end of the day, we're trying to make a human interface for a game, and humans do things that computers don't like.
Yep.
And you've always got to be able to figure out, like, okay, here's how people communicate. How fast are they communicating? How do we jump into it? And here's the thing. With this game, we are just scratching the surface of what's possible with, I'm going to go into a virtual world. I'm going to have a real conversation with an avatar, and I'm going to feel like there's a real person in front of me, because there are many things that are coming online now technologically, like sentiment analysis. Do I know if you're sarcastic, happy, mad, sad, and I can react to that as an AI? There are speech generation happening. So in our game, all of our lines are pre-recorded. Then when you talk to them, you get a really good performance from Sophie Wright. Sophie Wright's an amazing actress. At some point in the future, we will be able to synthesize lines and a realistic face, and drive that in a way that's compelling. So right now, you can do both of those things. You can synthesize a person's face, and you can synthesize their voice by having enough samples from it. The only problem is you can't really drive really compelling emotions from them today. Come back in 5 years. Let's see where we sit. So this idea of this Westworld-like experience where I'm going to dump you into a science fiction world, and you have a pretty good idea of what that science fiction world is like. You've watched all the movies and read the books and everything. Or maybe you don't. Who cares?
I've watched most of Westworld, and I read about 20 books a year.
So yeah, exactly. and so I believe that these type of story living experiences, and that's a term that was created by the people who make The Void, which was the Star Wars and the Disney experiences. I think these story living experiences will become kind of like this online persistent world where it's not even clear who's the real human and who's not. And it won't even matter to you because you can jump into, say, and I won't name any proper names, so we'll just say 10 years in the future, there's a Starship Commander universe. You can jump into it. This game is like an over the top, off the rails action scene, that goes wrong. And it's kind of akin to like a tentpole Hollywood film, and you're your own main character in it.
Yeah.
But let's say that I'm coming into this world 10 years from now, and I don't want to be going off the rails. In fact, I want to have a rom-com story. That's totally valid, and you can have that just based off of your own conversations and interactions with the characters. Or maybe I want it to be like a highly intellectual discussion about, transhumanism, where I'm basically, replacing parts of my body to become more of an android so that I can interface with computers better. Like this idea of what's a human and what's a soul and stuff. What if I want to have a really deep story about that?
Yeah.
And you'll be able to have that with the characters. So in my opinion, movies are going to never disappear, but they're definitely going to feel very classic or old school because it's a story that just runs linear A to B every time. It's the same every time. It's that director's vision. And if you like that director's vision, awesome. Keep watching it. If you don't like that director's vision, you're like, man, I didn't like that movie. That movie sucked. And I feel like these story living experiences that we're just scratching the surface on will be a future entertainment medium that will, exist kind of like there's movies, there's video games, there's books, and then there will be whatever this thing that we're creating is.
Nice. Yeah, it's I'm trying to think of the best way to kind of put it, but it's I kind of liken a lot of virtual reality experiences, especially narrative experiences in particular, as kind of like that Star Trek holodeck. We're not quite there yet, but like this is the first few generations of consumer VR hardware are the proof of concept. Yes, this works. And maybe in the future someday it'll work without a box on your face. Which will be even better. And I mean, especially with Oculus, with their the Inside Out tracking, and then the Quest now has that beta on finger tracking without controllers. I mean, the speed at which VR is advancing is kind of mind blowing.
Yeah, all these pieces that you're talking about right now, they all exist today.
Yeah, what's going to exist in 5 to 10 years?
What I think what's going to exist in 5 to 10 years is the market will be big enough to justify the cost of putting all these pieces together in a meaningful way at a AAA budget scale, right?
Yeah.
Today, a VR game will not get created if it's original IP, meaning like it's not based off of like something that Mickey Mouse owns. For any more than $300,000. If you ask for more than $300,000, people are going to look at you and be like, there's no way that's going to happen. And let's put into perspective, those Call of Duty games, those Grand Theft Auto games, the games that you look at and you're like, oh man, like I got to have me a little bit of that. Those games cost $100 million alone to create. Before they even lift a finger marketing it, before they put a single billboard up, before they make any of that extra stuff that makes you go and say, oh man, I should go buy this game. Pull your head out of YouTube or Netflix for 10 seconds for you to be like, oh yeah, this game's out.
Yeah.
Let's go buy it. And so VR is actually really incredible how far these things have gotten when you think of the budgets of things. Even Facebook, who finances AAA games, they haven't said what the budgets they are in those games. But when you look at the quality that they put out and the fact that everybody gets hyped up about them right now, the new game is Medal of Honor, you have to think, okay, how much money do they put into that? and how many years ahead are they of the market in terms of I'm a publisher. I know if I put down $1 million on a game that it's a safe bet that I can actually get a return and keep making games and not go out of business. Facebook doesn't have those limitations. They don't care if they put down $10 million on a game and then they give it away for free. In fact, they put down supposedly a similar amount to what was done in Facebook paid Epic Games to make Robo Recall, and then they gave it away for free.
Yeah.
And Robo Recall looked like 20 times better and played 20 times better than any other game. And it was because they could pay professionals to actually think about and go and say, what would a twin gun shooter, a good twin gun shooter in VR look like? And it was probably one of the first ones that shipped that way.
Yeah. I still haven't played it because I am not in the Oculus family.
That is unfortunate, but that's how the business works, sir.
Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise to me. I have an iPhone, so I fully understand the walled garden. I don't like it, but I understand it. And it is so easy to sit here and just be like, well, VR and all this stuff should just have an open standard that everybody can use. But in that ideal Star Trek world, that would be the case. But we presently live in the 21st century, and in the 21st century, we have licensing costs, and we have corporate backers, and we have marketing things to consider. So that's the world we live in. And sometimes it sucks, sometimes it doesn't. And most of the time, it's just kind of slightly annoying. But
I just see that someone redeemed a Make Me Dab. Do you have to go for it, or do you just
that's
do it in
me.
the middle, like
there is a
nobody
Make You Dab, which Fictional Cat, I'm warning you now, he will redeem that. But he makes me dab all the time. My thing
do you
is
just do it in the middle while you're just like while you're talking, just like it just happened, like I didn't even know.
Yeah, I do my best to just kind of like, just roll with it and just do it. Because
it's a guest dab right there, boom.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, and then Nevik Link just made me dab too, and I just did it. And Skiva says, "Don't do it; something will break." Because he was on last night. Skiva is the one of the co-hosts of Between Realities VR podcast on YouTube, and him and his co-host Alex crashed their spaceship onto my set last night and were my guests. And Alex broke a headset going for a masterful dab, I will say. But he broke his headset doing it.
It was the most epic dab ever.
It was pretty epic. It was hilarious too, because he goes for it, the headset goes flying, and you could see like this moment of shock in his eyes. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm just like, on the inside, I'm just like, oh, that headset broke.
I'm just thinking about all the headsets that I've got here. Just making sure that everything works, because for us, okay, so here's the thing. Everybody forgets that these headsets have microphones in them.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes sense, right? Because like I'm going to jump in a video chat with somebody and you got a microphone like right here on your nose. It's pretty good. If the quality of it is like more than like a 10-cent microphone, like you can get pretty good audio quality, because nobody ever sits that close to a microphone. And I
do, but
you do. Yeah.
Well, before I started just using the built-in microphone for the headset, I also have an AT2020 USB, and so I had that actually like right here in front of me for when I was doing the show, and I also had to put a pink plane in front of it, so I knew where it was in real space. Because in the first episode, I
ran into it.
I smacked the crap out of it. Because some days I'm very animated with my arms, and you get going, and then just next thing you know, it's like bam.
That's what the lavalier is for, son.
Yeah,
the lavalier is amazing for
the lav
VR
is very
streaming.
nice. Don't get me wrong, I have one. Where is it? It's actually right over here. I know.
Next to my 3D mesh bucket here of like.
Yeah, it's
oh, here's the Unreal chair, and here's the Unreal mannequin.
yeah. Well, I mean, like for me, it's yeah, running this show from inside of VR is a lesson in like dual proprioception, because I have to remember where I am in real space as well as this space, and that was a cup, but it's okay. It didn't spill. It has a lid. Uh, again, maybe I need a plane there to be like, that's where I keep my water cup.
Yeah,
but
you just have to put a tracker on your cup so that when it's time to take a sip, you can go, all right, there you go.
That's actually not a terrible idea.
Or paint a QR code on it.
Or because otherwise I just pretend I'm drinking from this mug. I mean, I'm happy with it. I did take I have my notepad and my pen here. So I did take a note earlier because you said, "Hello, I have a teapot." And I'm pretty sure that that's going to be a code in the game. So I'm taking a note of it because I want to.
Oh, you're trying to get some secrets for what's going on here.
Look,
you
man.
Want to know? Are you trying to find out the secret of human interact?
No, I'm not trying to find out secrets. I'm just listening very carefully.
You know what? I would suggest that anybody listen very carefully because the secrets just roll out of my mouth all the time.
Well, I will do my best not to pull secrets that I know I'm not supposed to pull from you, because we did have a discussion before the show, and there are things that, don't fully understandable, like NDA kind of stuff.
Well, I'm talking about secrets of the game, though. I'm not talking about like secrets of other companies. But
no,
like,
I'm not talking
secrets.
secrets.
There are Easter eggs in the game.
Oh, I can't wait to find
probably
those.
drop one for fans that are here. So
I like Easter eggs.
This is actually an achievement in the game. So one of the things that happened was while the ship was flying around, people would, because they're all gamers, right? Like we showed this to a bunch of gamers, and they're just like, oh, this is fucking cool. This is just like Star Fox. They're like, do a fucking barrel roll. And it's just like, no, that would make you so sick in VR. Like just any sort of horizon change or any sort of elevation change is like really nausea inducing. And so, people just kept saying this, like even people that we didn't say anything about, like Super Nintendo games or stuff, people just like, do a barrel roll.
Well, I mean, do a barrel roll is just internet meme gold.
I guess that's the thing. We actually, there was a kid who was like 17 who played it. I was like, there ain't no way you've played Star Fox, son.
I mean, not a good one anyway.
and he said do a barrel roll, and I asked him, why did you say that? And he was like, oh yeah, it's like a meme. It's like what people say.
Yeah.
Like people are saying things without not even knowing like what they're about now. Like, how old are we?
Well, I'm going to take a guess and say that the two of us are within 3 to 5 years of each other. And we're getting old, man. Like, I mean...
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I guess everybody goes through this.
We got Chris Fratz in chat. He's 20 years old and he played Star Fox 64. I haven't beaten it. Dude, I haven't beaten it either. It's so hard. What? What are you talking about? Like, I've beaten it on easy. I've beaten it on hard. I've beaten it going the middle path. Like,
listen, sir, I only get to play this game when I stream it.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, I'm talking.
Oh, man,
I did this.
I'm feeling so bad. I get to play it like I've played it maybe a total of 10 hours.
I played this back. I mean, that was like senior and junior year of high school for me. So it was like, yeah, I played the crap out of that game.
Yeah.
But floppy disk, you mean the save icon? God,
yeah.
That is kind of nuts when you think about it, because just real quick aside here is saying, even now, right? So it's like you have the floppy disk, which is save, which nobody has even seen a floppy disk. And it's not even really a floppy disk because it's a 3.5 inch and not the 5 1/4, which was actually floppy.
Yeah.
And then,
which is why it was called that. But,
yeah, exactly. And then the universal like send icon for emails is like a letter. And kids today don't know what a letter is.
I mean, kids still write on paper, so they might think it's like a piece of paper folded up or something.
Yeah, but I mean, you kind of get where I'm going with all of this. And it's just like, it's going to be really interesting, like, or the call button on a cell phone is an old handheld phone. And like, who has a handheld phone these days?
Yeah, but you know what? A lot of these things just kind of stick around anyway,
Yeah.
because it's just like, hey, that's the symbol for this. That's what that means, or you know, and then here's how you'll know that you have become officially old. When somebody in a different generation co-ops that symbol to make it mean something else, and you're like, God damn it, it's always meant the save button, and now you've turned it into the dab button.
Man, there's actually Chroma in chat brings this up, and this is a hilarious point. There are people out there who only think Flintstones sell vitamins and cereal. It's just like that gets a laugh track, Chroma. And it's true, man. One, they're like the most delicious vitamins ever made. And two, did you know that the Flintstones Kids jingle was written by Marty O'Donnell, who scored Halo?
What?
Yeah, right? Yeah, Marty, I made the music for Halo. O'Donnell did the jingle for Flintstones Kids. Dude, I met him once at E3 back in the before times, and I walked up to him and I was like, holy shit, you're Marty O'Donnell. And he's like, yeah, and I introduced myself and we were talking, and I was just like, look, dude, I've enjoyed your work since Flintstones Kids. You know, it's just kind of like a joke, and he looks over at me and he's like, wow. Yeah, you grew up big and strong, you know. It's just like we had a good laugh and we talked for a little bit, and it was just like, that Marty guy's all right. I'm in the middle area where I know about these old things but barely use them. Remember those slot car racers? Yes. Now they are Anki Overdrive, which is like Mario Kart was a oh god. Yeah. Like it's fun though too, because like Alexander, we've grown up in basically the best time as a gamer, because we have seen.
You could say that there's still stuff that's going to happen in the future.
Oh no, and like I'm so down for it, but like what I'm saying is like we've been there basically since the beginning, and we've got to see all of these evolutionary steps and like have our minds be continuously like the 8-bit to 16-bit jump. It was just like, where did all of these colors come from?
Yeah.
You know,
and then when you were like trying to fall asleep and you're like, I'm just gonna put on a YouTube video, you're like, clickbait, it's got a booby girl on, I don't want to watch that. And then it's like, oh, programming video, how I made my 8-bit NES game, I'm watching this to sleep.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, or there's a couple channels I watch where they do like readings of like old horror novels, and I'm like, oh, boop.
Yeah, so there you go.
Time.
That's the thing. There's all these types of different pieces of content out there, and you know, that's really shaping really who we are becoming, because there's no longer a group of 5 people running major network stations and then another couple people that run some, you know, hugely vertically integrated movie studio. I mean, that was the reason why I got into making VR in the first place, was I was starting to see the AAA game business turn into essentially like a very well-oiled machine like the TV film business. Because when I was originally, I thought I was going to be a movie maker, that I was going to go and make movies and do this awesome stuff. And then I learned really quickly that like, well, I didn't want to wait 30 years for like somebody to die in front of me so that I could start editing and then maybe move my way up into directing or something, you know? And so I made the jump to video games around 2008, and I worked there for a really long time, and I learned a lot of programming and game design, and just sucking in everything that I could about the whole production of making a video game. And then I started to see around 2015, it's like, man, this is turning into the same industry that I decided not to get into, because I felt like I had hit like this peak or plateau. Yeah. And I was never going to be able to decide what was going to be in a game. There was always going to be these group of people that already were part of the end club, and you know, like you either wait for them to leave and hope that they pick you, or you're just waiting around. And so when I saw VR come up, I was like, whoa, there's no crazy publishers. There's no industry system in terms of what the games need to look like or what the experiences need to look like. And I could just go out there and just make something actually relatively cheap and just put it out there for the world, and maybe it'll stick.
Yeah.
And it's just unfortunate that in the short term, the things that have really stuck were like twin gun shooters, things that came up with like using your hand presence. And that just seemed so obvious to me. It's just like, of course you're going to want to use your hands, but I'm not going to do that because there's going to be like 20 other guys doing that. I don't want to compete with that. I want to do something that, you know, nobody else is doing, and use that as a way to get in. It's just, man, server costs on doing the Microsoft stuff at first were too high for us to release out to the public, basically.
Yeah.
We were like, oh, let's just release this for free, and it's like, oh man, look at what this is going to cost. It's like, actually no.
Dude,
just because like
servers.
the server, like you hit the server, it, you know, produces a response. It works really well, but it just it took us a while to get around that. So it's great though, because in 2020 there is one little glimmer of hope. We're actually launching this game, Starship Commander Arcade. You'll be able to pay, you know, $7.99, and that will cover
8 days.
In 8 days. 8 days.
Yeah, guys, September 10th.
Yeah.
What happened?
And you'll be able to just speak your mind, and we won't be able to go, and we won't go bankrupt while you're doing it.
Well, you had mentioned like the do a barrel roll, and everybody says that, and of course it doesn't barrel roll. Now I'm like
No, it does not do a barrel roll.
It does not do a barrel roll.
It does not do a barrel roll because I like your stomach to stay in your body.
I do too, but that's why I'm so looking forward to Star Wars Squadrons, because I am just I want to be that weirdo that comes into dog fights like upside down and sideways.
Yeah.
Because
so I'm looking forward to Star Wars Squadrons too, but for a completely different reason.
Is it because you wanna fly an X-wing?
Because I'm gonna play it in pancake mode.
Oh, you're just gonna. Okay.
Yeah, because my stomach will not be able to handle that in VR. And in fact, all the VR guys like in the F Reality crew are basically like, I don't know how long I'm gonna play this in VR. And these are guys that play like shooters and stuff with like twin stick movement, and they're still like, yeah, this is gonna be a really intense experience. And I mean, the VR mode is great that it's there, but it's gonna be only playable by like a 0.5% of people who buy that game, if even. And we made different choices in our game to say, look, you're not going to control the ship directly. And we fought really hard because there were a lot of players and there were a lot of publishers that were like, let me put a controller in my hand so I can move the ship around. I was like, look, first of all, if I give you full on, you know, Wing Commander or X-Wing like controls, you will play this game for 10 minutes. You will get done. You will throw up and be like, man, Starship made me throw up. I'm not going to play that anymore. And so it's like, and the other thing too is we'd be competing with a game that had millions of dollars poured into it called Valkyrie.
Yeah.
And they had a full-on multiplayer shooter, and they were really awesome. And same thing with Elite Dangerous. You'd be competing with a game with even higher budget, Elite Dangerous, which I think we get unfairly compared to a lot. People are like, oh man, you should just play Elite Dangerous. It's like, Elite Dangerous does not have a refined story. It does not have a person you can talk to. And Elite Dangerous is a roguelike where you control your ship and fly around in places. And this is more of a directed story where you're in the military and you have a mission. It's Wing Commander versus Privateer, man.
Yeah.
They're two different games. And even though you might look at them on the surface and be like, oh, you're in space and shooting things, it's like there's so much more going on in Wing Commander in the story and in Starship Commander than in Privateer / Elite Dangerous.
Yeah. And you get to talk to Sophie, who's in chat. Sophie, I look forward to becoming your wing person.
You're the commander, actually. You become the commander.
Yeah, you know, that's true, but like still, wing. You know, we're squad mates here. You know. So the question I really have though is like, am I going to be able to do stuff because like I'm a big sci-fi and also slight nautical nerd for probably to nobody's surprise. But will I be able to go something like say hard to port, and then it'll turn left? But
so we don't actually put in controls in the game, and we actually explain it away in the story by saying in the future, people have actually gotten lazy, and good pilots don't exist anymore. And if you want to train up a bunch of pilots to be ready for war, that's a losing argument, because the enemy in the game, called the Echnians, are basically multiplying like way faster than the human race is. There's like, I think there's like a line Sophie even mentions when you talk about the Echnians. She's like, I think there's like 1 billion of them or something. I don't know. You know, I think there's like 1 billion of them on just on one ship. I don't know. You know, so the idea is that these automated ships are just now coming out, and you're flying one of the first ones, and it's kind of like the sleek looking iPod ship of the future. Like, even when we were designing it internally, we were like, okay, if Johnny Ive were to make a fighter, what would it look like, and what radical designs would it have? And we're like, well, it would have no flight stick, because the computer would be able to pilot it way better than you, and its aiming would be, you know, based off your vision, because the guns would rotate on gimbals, versus you having to steer the entire ship, because having the guns locked to the ship is like a 300-year-old design. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
And so the contrast between the DR-33, which is the ship Sergeant Pearson flies, and the XR-71, which is the ship that you fly, could not be even more. There is a like an old versus new. She's like the get off my lawn, I do things the old way, but she's a really badass pilot, so she gets away with it. But now they're just like, oh man, I guess they're letting commanders fly these ships now. And the idea is, like, we even ask your age at the beginning of the game, and you can say that, like, hey, I'm 7 years old. And I'm like, 7 years old? I can't believe they let commanders out so young these days, you know? And then she just totally just buys it as if, like, hey man, they're sending this 7-year-old off to war.
It's like they took the last Starfighter as military dogma.
Yeah, basically. Like, but the idea is that, like, you can make the story work for you based off of what you do there. And by the way, the reason why we ask the age is that that's our naughty language, or bad language gating system. So if you say that you're over 17, you will get essentially the full dialogue. If you're under 17, you will get censored dialogue or different dialogue that's more kid appropriate. So we did that
That's
because
two
we got a lot
playthroughs right there.
Yeah, well, we got that because we got feedback from the arcade owners that they were like, hey man, like, the only people that come in here are like these group of people from this church, or you know, we don't like this thing that's happening. Can you tone down the language? Why does she have to say shit? You know, and it's like,
Yeah.
you know, we added that, and it actually acted really, really good, because people are just like, oh my goodness, she commented on my age. And by the way, say that you're 21.
Okay.
It's a funny response, but you can say you're all the way like reasonable ages between like 7 and 70. You start going a little higher than that, and she starts making fun of you.
Well, I watched last night VR Oasis's playthrough of the game that he has on his channel, and he just answered very matter-of-factly. He's like, I'm 36 or however old he was at the time. And she just goes, yeah, I'm a spring chick too. And I was just like, I like this.
Yeah, we had to come up with like a bunch of lines in terms of what she responds to and what she says. And you know, we were like, hey, if somebody says like they're 40, we're gonna be like, 40 again. You know, like like we made a couple assumptions in terms of like what people would say, but like it was great doing that, because in the game there's about 50 lines that you're gonna hear in a playthrough. And a playthrough lasts anywhere between 10 to 20 minutes. It's 10 minutes if you're like, screw it, let's go. I don't want to hear any story. Let's go. I'm shooting things. Show me how to shoot the things. And then it can last 20 minutes if you sit there and just like, hey, how are you? What's going on? Who are those bad guys? Tell me about the engines on the ship.
Do you
What
have
kind of
any?
guns do I have?
Do you have any pets back at home? Yeah.
Yeah, you know, you can go through there and start asking questions like that. And there's a lot of things in there. In fact, if you watch the documentary Passion at All Costs, you can actually see one of the dialogue trees, like, and it's not even the whole dialogue tree. It's just part of the dialogue tree.
Yeah.
So you can get an idea of like, oh man, look at all these things that I can ask. And we never throw it up on screen, because when we did that, we found out that players were just essentially like just saying whatever the thing was on screen. And it's like, I'm not going to put like 100 things on the screen that you can ask. And I'm not going to put like the top 3 things, because then you'll think that there's only 3 things that you can say.
Yeah.
And so when we put you on the spot and say, hey, say what you want, you know, people get really creative, and and there's a really moment of joy when it's like, hey, I said something and I was responded to and I was reacted to appropriately.
And I feel like I should point out just real quick, though, the Passion at All Costs documentary is free with purchase on Steam.
Yeah, it's part of the game. So when you buy it, you'll get a 52-minute documentary about the VR industry, how we made our game, and everything that goes with it. But bringing it back to that point where I said, hey, you'll hear 50 lines. There's over 500 lines recorded in the game. And so like we were thinking, like, do we even throw up at the end like, hey, you only heard X of so many lines, and turns out that we just didn't want to do that, because we wanted you to own that story, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, this is my story. I don't want you to feel like you have to go through and play it again. But if you do play it again, that's totally fine. You can play it, like, you buy the game, it's yours. You get to play it as much as you want. There are going to be some people that get a lot of joy out of this. There are going to be some people that play it once and go like, that's pretty cool. I can't wait to see what happens. But at the end of the day, I really want people to know that it is possible to have a real conversation with an NPC in a game where you can say anything and it functions in a way that you're just like, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. That is really good. And, you know, people always look at this, and when they play it, they start getting ideas like, I want it in this game, I want it in that game, I want it in this game, which proves to me, again, my theory at the beginning, which is, you know, my directed story that I'm putting in here, that I'm directing towards you, is not everybody's cup of tea, and that's totally fine. And in the future, I hope that there are games out there where you can just have your own story and really generate your own story and make it your own. Because I think in the future, we're going to choose which worlds we want to live in our free time.
Yeah.
And not necessarily just like, I want to watch that movie, but it's, I want to be in this world.
Yeah. No, as we've been sitting here talking, oh, hey, Sophie, this one's for you. As we've been sitting here talking, and it's something I've been thinking about since I started watching a lot of the stuff about the game, is this is an excellent like first step in a whole new way of interacting with virtual reality experiences. And to see, you know, what is that second step? You know, where does that technology move from here? You know, and it's like, it just opens up this huge realm of amazing possibilities.
Yeah, and Chris Fratz is right. You know, he says maybe one day Peter Molyneux will try to revisit Project Milo again. I think the difference between Project Milo and what we're doing is like, we're shipping this. This is going to consumers. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I'm just saying like, hey, look, I give credit where credit's due. You know, they came up with a concept of this and they did it first. I don't know how well it's worked. They showed only a video of it, but we, you know, shipped this in December of 2018.
Yeah.
It was out in arcades when, you know, where it was financially viable at first. And that same content now is coming out in September of 2020.
I just like, you know, Peter Burns. Look, he's an excellent designer and idea guy who's been a part of the industry forever. But like at the same time, like he has this huge tendency of like promising you the entire United States, but he only delivers New Jersey.
You know, I think that a lot of those things are blown out by the press too. You know, he makes a statement in terms of his vision. Like he talks about his vision and where he wants to be. And that's a dangerous thing to do. Yeah. And because you may not be able to technically deliver on that vision.
Oh, man, a fun bit. Chris just says, remember that time he said you'll be able to plant an acorn in Fable and see a tree?
Well, I will also say, too, when the features get cut from games all the time. That's why the AAA guys are really, really cautious about talking about anything and not showing you anything until they're like, well, the game's done. or this
Yeah.
section's done and it's not being cut. And they still even put on there like, hey, pre-alpha, game could change completely at any moment, because you don't know if you've got to cut a feature
Yeah.
because
This is
something's not working,
indicative
or
of
like
game in development.
or a publisher just says, hey man, you got to cut this feature because, like, putting an acorn down is offensive to somebody, or right? Like, there's a whole number of things that can just happen that are technical, non-technical, that are business, that are marketing driven. At the end of the day, these guys are trying to maximize the amount of money that they're going to make off of shipping this product. And if they've got to cut a feature so that they can make some more money, they're probably going to do it.
Yeah. Well, I do know that you have an actual a time limit coming up here in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So, this has been a fantastic conversation, and I would love to speak with you again sometime, whether on the show or not. Show has people, and then or not has privacy. But
Ooh la la.
It's like there are things you can say on a show that and things you can say behind closed doors that you can't say on a show, and like, not to imply that there's like a bunch of things or like secrets or anything, but yeah, it's just, there's the behind closed doors conversations and there's the public ones. But before I let you go, I have a little bit that I like to close every show with that I call the 5 questions. Now, the 5 questions are a series of, 5 questions that I have prepared before the show that, strangely enough, actually do have some things to do with what we've been talking about, but really don't have anything to do with game development in general. So, question number 1, what was your least favorite subject in school?
Math.
Okay, cool.
And then I learned how to program later, which is like, oh my God.
God, yeah, I'm not going to say that math doesn't come into play in running this, but it definitely comes into play in running this, and I hate it. But I keep simple math on the show. So, question number 2, what is your favorite capital starship?
So, for me, it would probably be the Tiger's Claw. And I don't know if it technically counts as a capital ship, but it's just such a wing commander thing to me, because
That was one of the carriers, right?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, we'll count it. We'll count it. Like,
count it.
Yeah.
To me, what was important about it was its history and its relevance, and like, everybody talks about it as if like, hey man, they're like, because the story behind it was what makes you care, right? Like, a ship is a ship. And if there's a story behind it, and then there's a person attached to it, you care about it. At the end of the day, it's hard to get a lot of people to care about things. It's a lot easier to get a lot of people to care about a person. And if you can attach a person to a ship, or you can attach something bigger than the ship to that, and it's a significance, or it's a symbol for it, that's where you start to get people to really care about stuff.
Yeah.
That's a storytelling little deal right there.
Yeah, like the Enterprise in Next Generation is just a Galaxy-class starship. And it's really, when it comes down to it, no different from any other ship in that line, except that Star Trek took place on it.
Yeah, except that Picard's on there.
Yeah,
Picard's
he's part of Star Trek. I mean, But question number 3, and he is one of the best captains all time. I've become a Cisco guy as I've grown up. I love Cisco, man. Dude's great. Question number 3, what's your dream car?
Probably a Bugatti Veyron.
All right, cool. I'm glad that I asked it. Every other time I've asked this question, people have been like, one that drives. Yeah. Because everyone's like, I don't drive. And I'm just yeah.
But realistically, probably a Tesla, just because it mostly drives itself.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Like a full autopilot one, because like, for me, driving now is not like it's a pleasurable thing. It's more of a, oh man, I got to get in San Francisco traffic again.
Oh God. Ugh. Well, good answer. Question number 4. Which interstellar phenomena would you most want to see in person? From a safe distance, of course.
So I'd say a black hole, just because of what they showed off in Interstellar.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, that looks really cool. The idea of like these big interstellar or big galactic anomalies or whatever, they're hard for me to wrap my brain around because they're so big. And so when you're like, oh, let's see a black hole from a safe distance, and I kind of saw it in Interstellar, it's like, I honestly, I just kind of want to watch Interstellar again. Just because like I saw the movie once and I liked it so much, and then I was just like, man, I just want to watch it again. And I've been so busy. I've been so busy. Like I during the development of Starship for like the last 3-4 years, I just basically is like, I'm not going to watch a lot of movies. I'm not going to watch a lot of TV. I mean, I hardly even play video games anymore, just because it's like, do you want to ship a game or do you want to, watch someone else do stuff? And at some point I'll be like, all right, I'm too upset. I need to like ship my own thing. So.
Well, was 8 days. 8 days.
8 days. But my work is not over because there's still more trailers to come out. There's still
I was
more
about to
interviews
say, I imagine there's also like day one patches just in case,
This game is not going to need a day one patch. Fingers crossed.
Heck
But
yeah.
I mean, if a bunch of people hit it and like something is like really broken, I mean, we'll fix it. But this thing has been tested up into no end by lots of people, and that's why we don't have the early access on it. People are like, just ship it in early access, and I was like, no, you don't ship a story game in early access.
No.
That was actually one of the problems that we had, and really quickly, because I know we got to close this up, but
Yeah. And I still have
story
one more
games in
question.
early access are like, eh. But if you've got a story game that's fully finished, it's like, okay, I can play it and get a sense of what's there, and don't be told like, oh man, like we'll tell you more of the story later or something. I mean, this was an arcade experience. It is a truncated version of our original plan for Starship Commander. Our original plan for Starship Commander was so much bigger, but as you learn in the documentary, the market for games like this, it needs to be bigger, because we can't get people to be like, hey, here's $1 million to make a game.
Yeah.
But they'll spend $100 million on Call of Duty. So
Yeah.
we got a long ways to go.
That's
Last
a whole other
question.
episode right there. So question number 5, last question, kind of goes in line with question number 2. What's your favorite Starfighter?
I'm gonna cheap out on this question and say the XR-71.
Oh,
In our
well, I
game.
mean, you got to toe the party line.
Yeah, the XR-71 is quite an engineering marvel.
I mean, I hear it flies itself.
It flies itself.
Well,
It's
Alexander.
kind of like the Tesla.
Yeah. Oh God, just so long as I don't control it with that stupid neural link thing. Well, Alexander, it has been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so very much. Aside from the @human_interact Twitter tag, which I've had playing there in front of your mannequin for the entirety of the show, is there anywhere else people should go to track down any new information on Starship Commander as it comes out, excluding also, of course, the game Steam page, which you can go and you can wish list it right now, and you should, because it helps them out.
Thank you. I posted the link to that.
Oh no!
You can go. Our Twitter is where the majority of our news comes out.
Mm-hmm.
But we do have a website. If you're interested in finding out more about the game, I will go ahead and link it.
I would say don't
chat.
do that. Don't do that, because it's gonna get the thing. I'm heavy-handed with links.
All right.
Fictional Cat. He's the mod. He'll take care of it.
Okay.
He's good at that stuff. And if you're watching on YouTube, as you're passing down past the subscribe, thumbs up, and bell icons, you can go ahead and find that stuff in the description box below. So, Alexander, thank you so much for joining us today. Especially coming up on release. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule, because as a former game developer myself, I know what the couple weeks leading up to launch is like. So,
Yep. Well, thanks for having me, and I hope that y'all learned a little bit more about what the future might look like.
Well, here's hoping. Well, I will talk to you at a later date. I'm absolutely positive, mostly because I imagine in about 8 days I'll be letting you know, like, hey, the game was really cool. So until then, Alexander, have an excellent day. And to the rest of you wonderful folks in the audience, for everyone who came from Human Interact today to be here for the show, thank you so much for joining us. I do this show 4 to 6 days a week. So if you like what you see here, go ahead, hit that follow button down below. That would be like super wonderful, and I would be hugely appreciative. You should have been here for the 50th episode. You would have heard me tearing up about that. Other than that, Friday is going to be the next episode. It's going to be 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I'll be sitting down and talking with the developers behind Clam Man 2, an RPG about stand-up comedy. And Chris Fretz, thank you for the follow. Stand-up comedy RPG, that's right in my wheelhouse because that game's going to be weird. I mean, yeah, I'm all over it. So until then, everybody, remember, wear that mask, drink some water, have some vitamins, and be kind to each other because we're all in this together. So until then, everybody, I've been that Thom Clancy, and I'll see you next time on That Thom Clancy Show.